Another thing that I learned is how to export videos and also how to put them onto YouTube. Here you can see me exporting my video, and you can choose which quality you want it in, what file type you want it to be. What is using filters on my video. So here you can see in my actual video I'm using a filter to show the difference between times. So obviously normal videos are present, and then I wanted to show the future. So I had to put a filter on it. Having not done this before, I was a bit unsure of how it would work, but it did actually end up being quite easy, as you can just click on effects and then they have a whole range for you to choose from, and you just pick whichever effect that you want. I chose to use watercolour because I found this looked most effective in showing the different times in the narrative. But I found that it was a bit too bold, and I wanted it to be more diffused. So I changed the opacity of the watercolour so that it was a bit dimmer and not as blurry, because you couldn't really see what was happening if you had it on the full opacity. Something that is commonly used in the media is putting a monochrome effect onto a clip to show the difference in time. However, this is usually done to show the past instead of the future. And although thinking I might use this effect, I found that it would be too confusing, because it would look as if it's what had already happened to my victim instead of what will happen in the future. So I therefore decided not to use this, but I found that by looking at all of the different effects that I could use and the effect it actually had on the clip, I learned quite a lot, which would work well with whatever I wanted to achieve. Here is an example of me using a filter in my piece to show the difference between the present and also the stuff that is going to happen in the future, which is set in the garage. And yeah, I use the watercolour effect to show the transition between these two in my narrative. Something else I learned in this process is how to layer titles so that they can appear at different times, because with this editor, although it is quite good, it didn't have it so that the titles could fade in separately, because I wanted it to say one line and then the next line to fade in afterwards. However, it would only fade all of it in at the same time. This isn't what I wanted. So I played around and figured out that if you had two title layers and you put the first line on the first title layer and then the second line on the second title layer, that you could mess around and eventually end up with a title that flows better than it would. However, for this method to succeed, you do have to change some of the attributes and fades on the titles, which sounds quite complicated to begin with, but once you get used to it, it's fine. You just have to cut the titles and make sure that the attributes in the middle are off so that it doesn't fade in at different times. And that's another thing that I learned from this process. Here is a video that I made when I first got my SLR, in which I'm experimenting with different shot types, and also I experimented whilst editing them together. I used an SLR for the first time whilst making this project. After filming the whole video with a Sony Handycam and seeing the quality of the videos weren't all that good, I decided to invest in a DSLR. I bought a Nikon D3100, which was quite a big leap in technology, as an SLR can do a lot more than a normal handheld camera. This obviously meant that I was learning lots of new things about technologies, and I was seeing all the different effects that would have on my final product. Despite the fact I was only using the recording device on the camera, and occasionally I would use the zoom or the focus tool, I still managed to learn several things about SLRs and what they are capable of, as I was experimenting with the camera and I was researching different things you can do with them. Buying an SLR really helped me with this process. I was able to produce a better quality and therefore more professional product. Something that I did struggle with was adapting to using a tripod throughout the filming process, as I don't typically have a steady hand, and to be imaginative with the shots and angles I would have to use a tripod. However, to overcome this, I just had to practice with using a tripod whilst filming. I also recorded the same shot once or twice to make sure that I had backup in case some of the footage was a bit shaky or didn't work very well. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that I learned from this process about technologies.